Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time to review Aggro Dr1ft. This is the newest experimental film from Harmony Korine, and it has been met with some of the most divisive reactions I've ever seen. Just look at the Letterboxd.
And the leading rating, I think, is a half a star.
And that's not even that surprising. There's been a lot of reported walkouts. The movie's entirely shot in infrared. It's about the world's greatest assassin, self-proclaimed, who's trying to get a devil guy.
Yep. The plot is extremely superficial. It basically pares down a typical movie plot where there's a guy who has to get another guy and does not go into more detail or development with that whatsoever. The film is 95% concerned with just style. And holy shit, this movie looks different than any I have seen, and it transports you in a way that I have not felt in another movie. And that is due to the nature of the infrared photography. I think it was a little bit more than just having the camera shoot in infrared. There was clearly a lot of experimentation done pre-production that informed the look of this film. And they were able to do things that I don't know how they did them, where the colors would shift during a scene and throughout. The images were in flux of like transforming with colors. And there was some sort of Google Deep Dream looking interpretation going on like the skin of the characters. It resembles psychedelic imagery generated using, I think, machine learning and AI.
And there were like some visual effects works in the sky.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that.
But that looked very different from regular CGI. It looked as though those may have also been AI or machine learning generated.
Something about the movie feels almost more like a video game than a movie, and Harmony Korine has said that this movie is heavily inspired by video games, perhaps more so than movies. I mean, the plot itself just feels like a fever dream of the most misogynistic, dumb video game plot. For all the guns in this movie, it doesn't really do a guns blazing type of thing. It almost deprives you of that. And I don't know why. I don't know why anything, but I think I agree with the intention behind making this movie, which is that Harmony Korine just wanted to make some weird shit. Because he could, and because he envisioned it. This movie's kind of a big shitpost. I digested it more like I would a piece of music. I think this movie also heavily borrows from the vaporwave aesthetic, but it was just extraordinarily trippy and psychedelic to watch this movie. The glitches of the infrared photography and the shifting of the frames had me constantly mesmerized. Some people undoubtedly will just not be into it. They won't find any value in it, but I just liked it for the experience.
I feel like the best indicator with whether you will like this movie or not is, do you like wild electronic music? Do you like some crazy shit? Do you have a high openness to trying to find new weird types of music?
Like if you like Oneohtrix Point Never or 100 gecs, I don't know.
Or something crazier, because it's weirder than 100 gecs.
Well, the shitpost-y nature of it, where it's like, is it trying to be good or is it just trying to be like funny?
I'm kind of torn on whether in my analysis of this film I should try to ascribe a motivation to Harmony Korine and what he was thinking when he made this. Aside from the psychedelic demon puke visuals, I have to wonder if there was some motivation ascribed to presenting the story in the way that it was, and it reminded me of what people took away from Spring Breakers. People saw that as a satire of pop culture. I couldn't help but read that into this film to some extent, but I also can't confirm that that's what Harmony Korine was going for. And so I'm honestly just gonna throw out in this criticism, like trying to figure out what his interpretation was and just go with how I experienced the movie. I kind of relished in the seeming irony that was presented with like the guns, the asses shaking all the time, and the anticlimactic nature of this story in the sense that it doesn't exactly escalate into violence or action like you think it might. It's as though Harmony Korine was just taking a giant shit on pop culture. It's so incredibly stupid that I don't know how this could be unironic. But if it is, I don't even know what to think about that. I don't know what to say to Harmony Korine if he's like an actual 5-year-old who likes this stuff.
But what would that say about Spring Breakers? We all have accepted that was complete irony and satire.
Well, I don't know.
You have to extend that to Aggro Dr1ft, even though in interviews he almost talks about it like he's serious about it.
But mostly I was just excited by this, and I found it to be deeply immersive, made me feel like I was tripping.
This might be my favorite score of the year. I mean, I love the Oppenheimer score, but this was like more up my alley in a sense, as like electronic, ambient, very vaporwavy. I felt the score was just as trippy as the visuals in many ways, which is hard to do.
It really was like listening to an entire album, and oftentimes the tracks will shift in the middle of a shot, which you really wouldn't see in a regular film.
And they drown out the dialogue quite a lot in a trippy way.
It felt like I was sitting through a concert with the lights and the constant music, and the music so perfectly matches and enhances the visuals, but also the sound and what they're doing there. There's no sound that seems to be recorded. It's completely divorced from the image, and it's very much like a Terrence Malick movie, not just in how it's edited and shot, but in how you have a voiceover that's complementing the visuals like poetry, except it's almost like a parodied version of that, because there are lines that are extremely dumb that are just repeated about 5 times. This was often a very comedic element of the film. The voiceover was so absurd and so flatly delivered.
The movie was also funny in a way that I was led to believe that it was not. Sometimes it was funny in a way where I was like, is this the work of a filmmaker who has lost their mind and doesn't know that this is funny? Or is it just funny? Even though I probably would guess, like, he knows it. The not knowing is almost to the movie's credit. Like, I liked that it felt a little delusional in a way. But I, like, kind of had a smile on my face. Like, a little smile, like, the whole movie almost. The whole movie. The whole thing's so absurd to me that it's funny. Some of the haters of this movie like to be like, oh, you know, I've seen more experimental movies. Oh, this movie doesn't get to the level of trippiness that, like, this movie I know or this movie I know. And I'm like, it's not a contest to who's the most experimental. But honestly, I don't think you could show me a movie that gives me the very specific aesthetic and thing that this movie is. I don't think that you could.
It was so wonderfully stupid. It appealed to something inside of me that I can't really express. Something about it was just my taste. And it's something that no other film I've seen does before. This is a 9 out of 10 for me.
I'm gonna refuse to rate it. I'm right there along with
So
you.
just
Like,
give
I
it a
like
9
it a
out of
lot.
10.
No, I don't know. Why can't I just...
But if you're like, okay, I'm gonna read it as a shitpost, how good of a shitpost was that?
Maybe I'll know after I see it a second viewing. I thought it was wonderful. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Is this what your nightmares look like?